Meet the McNeary family. The McNeary family is a first-hand victim of the relentless and extremely destructive Hurricane Helena that ravaged through their east southern coastal community. This Category 5 hurricane became a tropical cyclone and turned into a storm that reached wind speeds of 155 miles per hour and up. Hurricane Helena left behind a path of destruction in the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean islands, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and the southeastern United States coast, including the McNeary's beloved coastal community. The McNeary family consists of 5 family members: Bill, Nancy, Scott, Ray, and their dog Caesar. Bill, the head of the McNeary household, was the owner and manager of a paper supply and printing shop. He is a realistic, hardworking, innovative man with a strong commitment to the safety and security of his family. His wife Nancy was the co-owner of the family business and a loving mother and wife to her family unit of 4. She places high value on interpersonal interaction inside the family unit, but she does, however, easily slip into a stage of anxiety and is emotionally expressive. Scott, their son, is a senior in high school. He has a part-time job and he loves to surf. He is in the prime years of his adolescence and is hyperactive, adventurous, and somewhat self-centered. Ray, the daughter and 5th grader of the McNeary family, is helpful, compliant, compassionate, and she's a caring young girl with a big heart. She is very attached to her golden retriever Labrador, the family dog Caesar. The hurricane left a vast impact on the community. The community got torn to pieces by Hurricane Helena as infrastructure, houses, businesses, trees, and electricity poles were brutally uprooted, making the community uninhabitable. The family members of the McNeary family have been vastly impacted by this natural disaster, as the hurricane took all the family's physical belongings, including their house, their personal valuables, and their business that was located on the business district on Front Street. The painful losses led the family to forcefully displace into a mobile home community, while trying to figure out what they should do with their personal property that got destroyed. All in all, the McNeary family underwent vast economic losses, and they are having trouble navigating their financial burdens. Alongside the vast array of environmental health issues, economic losses, and debris in housing and infrastructure, mental and emotional issues also become a great challenge when it comes to hurricanes and their destructive nature. Strunk, in her 2017 article, notes that the destruction caused by natural disasters, whether they come in the form of floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, or wildfires, can all be catastrophic. So it comes to no surprise then, she says, that we also tend to think of disaster recovery in terms of repairing the damage that we can see. Things like clearing debris and rebuilding homes and infrastructure. But, she notes, there's also the damage we cannot see. This being said, the hurricane's emotional impact on each of the members of the McNeary family reaches very deep, as Bill, Nancy, Scott, and Ray all deal with their emotions in their own way. The accompanying emotions and feelings that the hurricane's aftermath brought with it has had a vast and deep-going effect on each of the family members, and each member has in turn coped with the crisis in their own way. As a result, the McNeary family has drifted apart from one another during this painful journey, as some feel misunderstood and others desperate in their emotions. This led to a tremendous change in their family dynamics and in their ways of interaction. Let's take a look at how each of the family members dealt with Hurricane Helena before it hit, the day after it hit, and a month after it hit their community. Bill McNeary's past experiences with hurricanes in the same coastal area growing up helped him physically prepare for the hurricane as much as he could. Hurricanes are a situational accidental crisis that are largely unpredictable nor preventable. Yet despite the fact that it was out of his control, Bill still had a hope, a belief that he could somewhat control the outcome of the hurricane. This belief made his devastation that much more intense upon returning to his community, where the hurricane had left behind a path of destruction. Bill seemed to be in a state of dejection and defeat as he stared into the ocean, and he was overwhelmed by emotions in regards to the destruction of not only his house and business, but also the rest of his beloved community. All the worries and stressors that the aftermath of the hurricane brought with it were too much for Bill to cognitively and emotionally carry. The aftermath of the hurricane set off a depression within him, and he became withdrawn, quiet, and disconnected from the family. He picked up a job on the emergency crew of the local power company and made long days, leaving him exhausted when he returned home at the end of the day. Nancy was very anxious before the hurricane hit, and she did everything she could in order to prepare her family before having to leave her house and business to find shelter from the hurricane. Upon return, Nancy was heartbroken over the debris and destruction that the hurricane had caused. As the weeks passed by and the aftermath of the hurricane started to weigh heavier on her shoulders, and physical and emotional responsibilities of maintaining her family's security were starting to pile up, she became very angry at Bill and at the way that he was handling the aftermath. She grew feelings of desperation as she felt overwhelmed by how everything around her, both physically and mentally, had fallen apart, and she seemed to have no control over any of it. After a visit with her doctor, she was put on antidepressants and sent to a counselor to talk about her internal and external experiences that the hurricane had caused in her life, as well as the vast array of accompanying problems that it had brought into her personal and family life. She also shared these concerns with a wife and mother hurricane survivor support group. Upon evacuation, Scott's first reaction was that he was upset due to not being able to surf the waves, but then he readjusted his perception and realized the seriousness of the situation, thus becoming more uneasy. After the hurricane and upon return to the island, Scott was very pumped up, seeing the whole experience as a great adventure, and he couldn't wait to return to surfing. His self-centered point of view completely blocked out the emotions and physical destruction that the hurricane had caused on his family and his community. A month into the aftermath, Scott, who was in the full swing of his adolescent years, was giving his mother an extremely hard time at home. He is having a hard time understanding the severity of the situation that the hurricane caused, and he seems to be selfish and drawn into his own world of interests, which is not unusual for his lifespan. According to a 2002 article by the American Psychological Association, things such as 1. High risk-taking, as is prominent when examining his hobby of surfing on wild waves. 2. A self-centered attitude, as seen in his reaction before and after the hurricane. And 3. Argumentative dialogues are very normal during the stages of adolescence. This being said, Scott's reactions, behaviors, and attitudes are not out of norm. Scott's responses before and after the hurricane ranged from excitement and curiosity to unease, hyperactivity, anger, and attitude towards his parents, especially directed at his mother. Ray's experience with the hurricane consisted of a slow but gradual buildup of internalized emotions. Before the hurricane, she was very compliant in helping her parents prepare, but deep down she was worried and scared. Ray was extremely worried and upset after returning to their home the day after the hurricane. Not only was she shocked to see what the hurricane had done to her community and her house, but she became greatly distressed when she realized that her beloved family dog Caesar, who went missing the morning of the hurricane, had not returned home. This stirred up an upsetting and worrisome state of emotions for Ray. She was very attached to her family dog, and him not responding to her calls made her fear the worst. She, however, did not share these thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Instead, she buried them, and she did not feel like there was space to discuss them with her family, who, in her eyes, had enough on their plate to worry about. As a result, she became passive, extremely submissive, and retracted inward, as she started to bottle up her emotions. One day, she decided to leave school without giving anybody any notice, as she set out to go find her dog Caesar. After she had been safely brought back to her parents, the crisis situation greatly alarmed Bill and Nancy about Ray's bottled-up emotions. It made them realize that even though their daughter had been seemingly fine, she in all reality was not. Bill and Nancy knew that it was time to take action to help their family as a whole to cope with the aftermath of the devastation of Hurricane Helena in a healthier and more productive manner. Strunk, in her 2017 article, notes that long after the skies have cleared, what remains are the storms within. The lasting psychological impact of disasters on individuals, families, and communities. Disasters can be traumatic experiences that take a toll on the emotional well-being of survivors, even if they aren't hurt physically. Immediate reactions like shock can turn into numbness and denial, which may then give way to anger, frustration, anxiety, depression, and despair. This being said, the reactions, behaviors, coping mechanisms, and changes in personality that every member of the McNeary family are going through are not uncommon. The Department of Human Services notes that disaster recovery occurs over time in phases, and it is not a linear process. As seen on this disaster recovery graph, there are emotional highs and lows that are most extreme in its fluctuations during the first year after the natural disaster struck. As a pre-disaster warning and threat are released, emotions start to lower. During the actual impact, they drop a little lower yet. But then, a community cohesion takes over and spikes emotions back up temporarily. Then, a steep downfall occurs in emotional well-being as trigger events have victims relive their experience and a broad range of physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral reactions take over the mind. A vast fluctuation in highs and lows is apt to occur during that first year, and on the anniversary, another dip is created. After this, it is common for one's overall well-being to start rising and find a constant once again. Next, let's look at some of the potential challenges, ethical issues, and social justice matters that the caseworker may run into when working with the McNeary family. It may be challenging for the human service helper to offer the McNeary family optimal aid due to the fact that their community is torn apart and many places might be inaccessible and infrastructure unsafe. In addition, it may be hard to tend to the family as a whole because Bill, the husband, is gone most of the day and Scott, the son, is non-compliant, with the possibility of blowing the caseworker off completely. In addition, since the McNeary family is in temporary housing and their community is uninhabitable, the human service professional may have the challenge of understanding how the family dynamic was prior to the hurricane. The family's familiar surrounding has been completely destroyed, and the members have been forcefully uprooted from their home. Them being in an unnatural environment might make it harder for the caseworker to determine the members' personalities and dynamics. Since a large number of individuals and families had been affected by the aftermath that Hurricane Helene caused, the American Healthcare Association and National Center for Assisted Living notes that some ethical challenges may arise in regards to the fairness and distribution of services, and that the helper ought to act in a responsible and utilitarian manner while portraying stewardship. This might become a problem, as the human service professional may have a strong personal commitment to do whatever it takes to help the McNeary family. Yet the priority of human service delivery needs to take place fairly, proportionately, and justly in its distribution services. As there is only so many resources available in a natural disaster setting, and a great many individuals to tend to. To add to this, the human service professional ought to follow the ethical values and elements of public accountability and professional duty, and their delivery of services needs to happen in a benevolent, consistent, and transparent manner. This might become an ethical issue as these values and elements might interfere with the helper's personal morality, determination, and attachment to help the McNeary family. There is a very delicate balance when it comes to offering services to those within a community struck by natural disaster, and the helper is going to have to make decisions as to the type and length of the services offered in the form of a distribution of services that is socially reasonable, equal, and just. Ferris, in his 2008 article, writes that social justice issues that can possibly pose a problem for those affected by a natural disaster include unequal access to assistance, discrimination in aid provision, enforced relocation, sexual and gender-based violence, loss of documentation, recruitment of children into fighting forces, unsafe or involuntary return or resettlement, and issues of property restitution. Social justice can thus be put to the test when a human service professional works with the McNeary family. The helper might have to help the family navigate through all these potential problems. Typical disaster assistance resources can be found on this slide. The most prominent available resources include disaster care management, personal property and homeowners issues, food, utility and employment assistance, and crisis counseling. The McNeary family has received help from the American Cross, the Federal Emergency and Management Agency, also known as FEMA, and other local agencies, and they have been relocated into a mobile home community until they can decide on what to do with their personal properties. In addition to this, Scott and Ray, the children, have school support counseling that offers art, discussion, sharing, and guidance groups at their temporary school. And Nancy has received antidepressant medication from her doctor, as well as attended counseling and the Wife and Mother Hurricane Survivor Support Group. In addition, the following resources, referrals, and network groups can be offered to the McNeary family. The first referral for the McNeary family is the Kitsap Community Resources Center. Bill and Nancy can participate in this resource by making use of the employment assistance that the center offers. Since they have vast financial burdens, it might be a good idea for Nancy to consider finding a job. Bill has a job on the emergency crew of the local power company, but it might also be a good idea for him to consider alternative job opportunities. They can find help from this resource by partaking in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act in the Adult and Dislocated Worker programs, which offer employment and training programs for people who need help in finding a new job or a new career. Both Bill and Nancy can gain occupational skills training in the means of career counseling, which will help them in exploring their vocational interests and in strengthening their skills and expertise to either restart their print and paper shop or to start up a different business. Or if Bill and Nancy are not interested in returning to a self-employed status, they can get help and support in searching for a job that's physically and emotionally appealing to them, as well as financially reasonable. In addition, both Scott and Ray can get involved in the Kitsap Youth in Action organization under the Kitsap Community Resources Center, with the benefit of having a personal activity that can help them in both moving forward and onward from the devastating hurricane. It will give them both an opportunity to get involved and feel more connected to their community. This organization also allows them to meet new people and possibly form kinships with individuals their age. In addition, the McNeary family can use the Kitsap Legal Services Office to get free legal advice and legal aid on 1. How to apply for disaster assistance by requesting a Small Business Association disaster loan, and 2. How to handle finances after a natural disaster. By gaining advice on these two matters, the McNeary family can become educated as well as receive proper guidance during the application process of a home and personal property disaster loan and a business disaster loan if they choose to rebuild their business. According to the Washington Law Help website, the Small Business Association can make low-interest disaster loans to homeowners, renters, and businesses who have been disaster victims. These loans should help you replace personal property and repair real property and equipment. The legal aid and education offered to disaster victims at the Kitsap Legal Services Office can thus be extremely helpful in helping the McNeary family sort through their financial burdens, as well as their personal property and business losses. All in all, the McNeary family is in dire need of emotional healing and recovery. They need to feel understood in their pain and suffering by being offered profound moments wherein the human service facilitator is fully present, compassionate, and caring, while giving each of the members of the McNeary family a feeling of ease and empathy. They need to be offered a place wherein they can share their sorrows, and wherein they can be given the ability to work through their individual and collective pain. With the discussed referral network, the McNeary family is given a chance to achieve all of this. They are given an opportunity to climb out of their mental and physical debris and to move onward and forward in a healthy, enthusiastic, and productive manner.